From CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. Donald Trump's decision to end temporary protective status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans cut like a knife through the South Florida community. After being told by Republicans in Florida, including Carlos Jimenez, Mario Diaz-Balart, Maria Vera Salazar, and Marco Rubio, that they had nothing to fear, Venezuelan voters who supported Trump now realize they were lied to by those same politicians they had trusted. This week, I spoke to Maria Corina Vegas, a Democratic Venezuelan-American activist and lawyer. It would be easy for her to tell her fellow Venezuelans, "I told you so," but there would be no joy in that for her. Instead, I asked for her reaction to what Trump is now doing.
Well, I think it's abhorrent. I think people who came through TPS and through the humanitarian parole program are here with a legal status. They came under a legal program. They were vetted, and they are hardworking members of the community who are distressed to find themselves in this situation and feel betrayed generally by the administration.
So much of the Venezuelan community bought into what Donald Trump was telling them, bought into what you said to me earlier, which was, you know, whether it was Maria Vera Salazar, Carlos Jimenez, Marco Rubio, Rick Scott, Mario Diaz-Balart, all professing, you know, why Donald Trump was the answer, and why they should turn their back on Democrats. You know, what message do you have to say to your fellow Venezuelans now?
I think I'm so sorry that you were betrayed, because the people that have your back, it turns out they don't have your back. And not only are they coming for you, but they're coming for all other categories of immigrants that came in like you. I think it is really important for the Venezuelan community to understand that this is not just about them. And for the Miami-Dade community at large, Democrats need to, you know, make the contrast and present themselves and lean into the difference between what it means to treat people humanely, to try to solve things in a way that brings democracy to Venezuela. Trump obviously thinks that Venezuela is a great place to go back to, and there are people that have to go back in April that, you know, are basically going to be targeted. He sent an envoy to meet with Maduro and shook hands with Maduro. So what does that say to every Venezuelan that was assured that the Trump administration was going to ensure that Maduro left power and that the democratic will of the Venezuelan people would be honored?
What do you say, though, to the Maria Vera Salazars and the Carlos Jimenez and the Rick Scotts and the Mario Diaz-Balarts who gave that message, who said you can trust Donald Trump not to do what he's doing now? What did they do?
What do I say? Nos clavaron una puñalada por la espalda. You betrayed us. You betrayed your community. We don't have Cuban Adjustment Act for Venezuelans. We don't have a Cuban Adjustment Act for Colombians. We don't have a Cuban Adjustment Act for Nicaraguans. Reagan was a Republican president that, you know, was supportive and welcomed the benefits of immigrants in the United States. What happened to that? What happened to the idea that America is a country of immigrants?
Well, isn't that, but let me just sort of jump in.
Yeah.
That seems to be a relic of the past. This new America largely seems to be anti-immigrant. You know, You're not seeing people protesting. You're not seeing people protesting, these immigration measures. If anything, the vast majority of the public seems to be supporting and okay with what Trump is doing with deportations to other countries, with opening up Guantanamo Bay to start housing more and more people. All of those things.
I completely disagree with you. I think we are overwhelmed with everything that's happening because he clearly campaigned on one platform and he came prepared with something else, because no one, not even the Republicans in office at the time and who are now extolling the administration to return the TPS protections to Venezuelans based on the pressure from their own constituents, are supporting this in Miami-Dade. Miami and South Florida would not be anything without Latin American immigrants. Weston wouldn't be anything without Venezuelans. Doral wouldn't be anything without Venezuelans. So I have to strongly push back on that, because people are going to be pushing back not only on this, but on many of the other initiatives that are being taken by this administration that are counter to the fundamental American values.
You talked about the 300,000 or so Venezuelans who are legally in this country, who are citizens, who are registered to vote.
In Florida. In Florida alone.
Right. And that, and what I thought was interesting was I listened to Governor DeSantis the other day when raised this question of Venezuelans feeling betrayed, and he just sort of sloughed it off by saying, well, no, anyone who voted for me or voted for Donald Trump is a citizen and isn't affected by it. And I thought to myself, do you not understand that the other 300,000 who are here who are affected, or there are nearly 1 million who are here and affected by the loss of TPS?
He obviously does not understand
that those are the family members of those voters.
Clearly, he does not understand. He does not understand that the people that are here in Florida that are related to those voters, are the first ones, the voters are the first ones that are blindsided by that, because they are happy to have had those protections and took advantage of those protections to have their families here, legally, because it was dangerous and horrible for them to be in Venezuela, because the humanitarian crisis and the lack of democracy in Venezuela is still an issue. It hasn't gone away by a magic wand. It's not a great place to live, to go back to Venezuela. And it won't be wonderful for the people that are going to be deported there. This is just something that is beyond the pale in terms of precedent, for not only for the United States, but all over the international communities. I don't think legal programs, that are passed by one administration, and people that come here through those pathways can be, from one moment to the other, just taken the carpet from under them. It's not. It does.
Wait, let me jump in. It does look like the Trump administration has already cut a deal with Maduro, sending one of his emissaries, Rick Grenell, to Venezuela to bring out some Americans who are being held there, but more importantly, strike a deal with Maduro to accept those who the Trump administration now wants to deport back to Venezuela. You mentioned this just a second ago. What's going to happen to those folks who are being deported from South Florida back to Venezuela? What happens to them when they get back to Venezuela?
Well, they are going to be doxxed by the Venezuelan government. And it's horrible. They're going to go back to horrible circumstances. The circumstances are not going to change. And this is again a betrayal by Trump.
Are they at risk? Are they at risk in Venezuela?
Of course, they are at risk in Venezuela. They are at risk of being imprisoned. They are at risk of everybody who is in Venezuela, first of all, they are at risk of not being able to provide for their families. Right now, they are working here, they're paying taxes here, and they're helping their families back in Venezuela. But the other thing that Trump did by sending his envoy there is essentially recognize the dictatorship. And that's the most offensive thing, in my view, that has happened, because he didn't say, I'm going to impose tariffs on you like he's doing with other countries. He's not bullying Maduro. Maduro doesn't seem scared at all of Trump. In fact, Maduro seems to have played Trump. And Chevron seems to be getting its license renewed, and oil is going to flow, and that oil is going to provide money for the Maduro regime to continue to stay in place, repress its people, and continue being a bad actor in the region, together with Cuba and Nicaragua.
What do you think the answer to that is?
Like everything with Trump, he is a chaos agent. And it is unsure what will happen. But the one thing that we can be certain of is that we will, me as a Venezuelan and the Venezuelan community is tired of being played. So I will do my utmost here in Florida to hold everyone accountable.
Anything else you want to talk about?
We are not criminals. Venezuelans are not criminals.
When we come back, it looks like there could be a breakthrough in negotiations between the Florida legislature and Governor Ron DeSantis on immigration. We'll talk to a Republican state senator who has been in the middle of the immigration battle from the beginning. Stay with us.